Hello, Paul.
What the hell was that? Hello. How you doing, everybody? We can see there's a few people already on. If bear with us there until some more people come online, and then we shall invite the lads in. So hope everybody's doing all right out there in lockdown land, and that they're staying productive and occupied in a positive capacity. How's Ray?
I'm good, Paul. Thanks. Very well. All good. What's happening with everybody there? Who do we have joining us tonight in the chat at the minute? If you're there, pop a little hello. Let us know how you're doing on this beautiful sunny day. Did you get out into the sun there at all, Paul?
I did. I was out the last couple of days. I'm doing a lot of kind of running and exercise and walking and reconnecting with nature and all that type of stuff.
Good. It's good and it's healthy, and I think if now that we can do that, it's great to see people out.
Yeah. If anybody is not aware, we also have a stand for those of you who have been here before. You're very welcome back. Those of you who haven't joined one of the live FNI home sessions, we also have a standalone podcast called FNI Rap Chat, and there's a couple of really interesting ones. Well, there's a lot of interesting ones over the last kind of 2 years. So you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and what's happening there? Look at that. It's like something from the future. It's like Ray's Inception Shed.
What did you do? Oh, did I do that? Sorry.
Ray's Inception Shed.
Sorry, man. I'm just setting this up to stream into the Facebook page for the minute. So which camera can you see me now? I'm a bit lost now.
I can't see you, Ray. I can see 6,000 versions of myself, though.
Oh, yeah, dude. Okay, I'll be back in 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. As I was saying, we have a standalone podcast on the Head Stuff Podcast Network, which is available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and on the Head Stuff Podcast Network. We had some really interesting chats quite recently as well. One with Lenny Abramson, director of Normal People, and he addresses the Joe Duffy furore over the last couple of weeks, and goes through kind of his process, his casting process, and everything else. So that's a really good episode. Check that out. And coming up in today, or probably tomorrow, we're sticking it out, isn't it? We're joined by Aisling Francesi, who is a Irish. Hello.
Oh shit! How did that happen?
How are you doing?
Not too bad. Will I leave and come back or what?
Well, you're here now. You're here. Pull up a chair and get yourself a drink.
How are you, Paul?
I'm very well. How's it going? Great minds think alike.
What is that? That looks like a Guinness.
It's a Guinness in a Smithwick's glass, which is sacrilegious, but I don't have any Guinness glasses. I'll just brief the guys there. Just bear with us there. We're just waiting for a few more people to come on, and then we'll start proper. And we'll invite Ger on. Where's Ger there? How do we invite Ger on there, right?
Hey, Alex. Ger should have access there now as well. So if you have any issues there, I can jump on WhatsApp if he's having any issues.
Okay. So guys, thanks so much for getting involved. We're also recording this as well, so for those of you who couldn't take part, we also put them out afterwards as well. Check out our other previous episodes where we spoke to Declan Lowney, director of Father Ted, and Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa, and we had Frank Berry on most recently as well, talking about his experiences making Michael Inside and I Used to Live Here. This week we're really lucky to be joined by one of my favourite documentarians, Alex Fegan, and by indie darling Gerard Walsh. Gerard has made 3 independent features completely off his own bat, and is the very kind of essence, I suppose, of what kind of indie filmmaking, or what FNI kind of represents, is doing it for yourself, not waiting for people to, I suppose, give you money, but also to kind of he's a go-getter and an upstarter, and does very much walks the walk as opposed to talking the talk. And he's also a viral sensation. He's made a number of kind of videos for charity and various different bits and pieces as well, which have done really well. Alex work you'd remember for being some of the more commercially successful Irish documentaries over the last couple of years. Older in Ireland being one of them. The Irish Pub, both of which did very well commercially, but also won many awards all over the world. And most recently, Alex directed a TV documentary series called Abbeyfeale Good, which was screened to great reviews on RTE over the last couple of weeks. There's Gerard Walsh now. Welcome.
Okay. We don't have your audio.
He's messing, isn't he?
Sorry, Gerard, we don't seem to have your audio there.
Technology, you have to love it. Alex, can you hear us?
Yep.
Wonderful. Now, guys, if you, on the right hand side there, you'll see there's chat, polls, and people. You can see who else is on, and with the chat option there, you can ask questions as well. So if you have any questions for the lads as they go, they'll be chatting to each other about their own work. You can type in there, and they'll try and get around to them towards the end, when they run out of things to say.
Yeah, can we hear you, Gerard?
Can you hear us? Oh, Ger. Ladies and gentlemen, just bear with us there while we saw it. Every week we have a very slight technical problem, but we're working through it, as you can see. Just bear with us. Alex, how's things? How's lockdown going for you?
Good, thanks, Paul. As good as it can be. Getting into a lot of bad habits.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse having a drink every day of the week.
1 o'clock is definitely getting earlier. Look at my eyes.
Congratulations, by the way. I'm delighted that Abbeyfeale Good was so well received.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm as you know yourself, the transition from, I suppose, cinema to television is a bit of a daunting one, because people haven't paid necessarily or want to be there. That must have been fairly daunting, was it?
Yeah, it's also great because you're getting to reach a big audience straight away, as opposed to going through all the increments that happens with cinema. But look, both are a privilege. Anytime you get your work out there, it's fantastic. And look, we got very lucky because the film was about hairdressers at a time when people can't get their hair cut. So
again, you landed on your feet.
So it's just pure luck. People seem to really resonate with that.
Yeah, and it's great to, well, not that you're a stranger to good reviews, but it's great to see the papers as well giving it a massive thumbs up as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's look, we the people of Abbeyfeale were just lovely, warm, gentle people, and it's hard to be critical of that. So all we had to do was really point the camera at them let them do all the hard work. And,
exactly.
With a good team.
No, it's I watched it as well, and again that kind of magic formula, putting everybody at ease, and then just letting them do their thing has really paid off yet again. Obviously, it's not as simple as that, but it very much feels like that.
It kind of is that simple in a way. It's just the key, I suppose, is just getting people in an environment that they're comfortable in. And I think when people are getting their haircut, yourself, you're kind of trapped. You've nowhere to go. So I think it's
we all know what that's like at the moment. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But how are things with yourself, Paul? How are you?
Good. Good. We're trying to gravitate a lot of what we do at FNI online. So we've been applying for some grants and other ways of working. We're exploring different ways of working now because, whether, for better or worse, whether or not we're integrated back to normal society, I mean, a large portion of the way that we're working now will continue at least for the next kind of 8 to 12 months anyway,
It's been brilliant, Paul. Just all the interviewees that you've managed to get on and keeping us all entertained.
Yeah, well, we just wanted to do so. I mean, it's not in no ways a money-making exercise. We just wanted to kind of, we were exploring and this software for a good while ago, like over a year ago, kind of beta testing it and stuff like that as well. So it's just by happy accident we were kind of ready to go with this when this kind of happened, and it works really well, apart from some very, 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 very obvious sound issues. Ray, did you tell him just to use a pair of earphones and a pair of earphones with a mic instead? Maybe it's his laptop speakers or whatever.
Yeah, he's just moving from using the iPad to, I think, the desktop or something. So he's going to jump on now in a second. Should be fine.
Yeah. Just and just from an FNI point of view on the podcast and stuff, it's been different. It's been strange and different trying to work remotely and try and figure out how best to make that work and get the sound working correctly. And we've been fiddling with a few different things, and it's proved more challenging than we would have imagined.
That was great. Fair play to you. Probably not enough people give you the credit that you deserve because you're doing a great job.
Well, thanks very much. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And Ray, the Bill Gates mastermind of everything behind the scenes.
Come on, Ray.
Good to see you, Alex.
How are you?
I'm well. Yeah, how are you guys keeping?
Good. I'm down in Kerry at the moment.
I thought.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
So it's sunny here for a change. It can be quite wet down in
Is this working?
Kerry,
Yeah, Alex, stop talking. He's back.
Okay,
Cool.
Lovely. Look at that. He's in Barbados.
I got it on the phone. That's all good.
that's okay.
Well, welcome aboard, Gerard.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you, and thanks both of you for giving your time up like this. I know, especially around 7 or 8 o'clock at night, can be tricky when you have kids because you have to put them to bed and stuff.
Yeah,
so
literally just went down there, and that's what I had it all set up downstairs, and then it wouldn't work, so it would have been right up in the office beside her, so it would have been a pain in the hole, so.
Oh, sorry.
It's done now anyway, so it's all good. Nice.
Very good. Welcome along. So myself and Ray will kind of duck out. Again, thanks so much, guys. On the right hand side there, just Alex and Gerard, you'll see the chat function there. Some questions will pop up, so be aware of them, and then maybe towards the end you might answer a few of those as they come up. We'll be here, but just not on.
Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, if anyone has any issues, to just message us either here in the chat box in this event or as well on the Facebook page or the group, if that helps. And just another thing, just like to say thank you to everybody obviously participating in this, but if anybody does have €4 spare, they can make a donation to the Bumbleance Children's Ambulance Charity. So they can text BUZZ, so Buzz, to 50300. And the text costs €4. Bumbleance will receive a minimum of €3.60, and obviously that service provider charges and everything on top of that. Service provider like charity helpline is 07668 05278. Lovely.
Yeah, and if you're not aware of what Bumbulans do, Bumbulans are a children's ambulance service, and in some cases, not all, quite literally, that'll be the last kind of journey that some kids will take. So it's not unlike kind of Make-A-Wish in a way, and they do incredible work. So if you're not aware of it, please give generously. It's not a prerequisite, but if you have a few quid to spare, drop them a text. I'd really appreciate it. Without any further ado, the two lads who do make the films and all.
Brilliant. Thanks, lads. Looking forward to this.
Thanks,
Thanks, Mel. Cheers, lads.
Believe you, sir.
So who starts?
How are you, Gerard?
I'm all good. How are you?
Good.
How's-
So, how have you been keeping? First of all,
It's been a weird one, but I'm keeping all right. Like just it's actually been nice because you get to spend a bit more time at home. Like, you know, like I. So it's been odd, but we're doing the best that we can to kind of make the time pass. And to be honest, with a 3-year-old, it's not that hard to get the time to pass.
yeah, same as trying to entertain the kids.
Yeah.
when they're not in school, and homeschooling. You don't have to do that, do you?
No, we don't have to do that. Luckily enough, I'm bleeding useless.
Oh yeah, I realised definitely teaching wouldn't be a calling of mine.
Yeah. And yeah, today I got her we got our bouncy castle today, like, and she had I think maybe a half an hour, and then she was just like, all right, I want to go inside and watch telly. So I was like, all right, fair enough. Whatever keeps her happy, you know.
So tell me this, by the way, like, because Gerard, I hadn't seen your films before, so I watched all 3: A Day Like Today, South, Release. You made those 3 films off your own bat.
The third one now, that one wasn't off my own bat. Release wasn't. That was a part of a project that I was doing with Bankhouse. So it was like a school scenario, and I was a director / kind of headmaster, I suppose. But
you were kind of talk about that. What was that?
So it had been there had been a film previous. It was called I'm actually blanking now, but it was a part of a program, and it was feature film project. That's what it was. Sorry, and there was a film that was made before, a couple of years beforehand, and then the guy who created it, Matthew, wanted to bring it back, and we had done South together, so he was like, let's do this together, basically. So the idea was then to get the actors. Not some of them were non-actors. Some of them had done some acting or some theatre work, and it was bring them all together, and then basically I think the idea was to have a script ready before, like long before we met the actors, but I had an idea, and that's all I had. So I met the actors and kind of wrote this. The original idea was different to what eventually we did, but when I met the actors, I had to give them an equal share in the film because they were paying to be a part of this project. So when I met them, I met them the first week. And then so we had 2 classes a week to kind of prep for the film. So we did it for 8 weeks, I think. So we met them the first week, and then so after 3 classes, I basically figured out who I wanted, and then the night before the 4th class, I wrote the script, and that's the script that we went to it. Like, there were a few alterations and stuff throughout the next couple of weeks. But I don't even think I told Matthew that until I've never told Matthew that, I think. But yeah, it was the night before we wrote the script, so it was crude enough, but we knew what we were trying to do with the film, like. And
because like in both South and Day Like Today, you know, you're dealing with sometimes quite large casts and a lot of locations. Yeah. And who are you working with producing these, or are you doing a lot of that yourself as well?
I produced A Day Like Today with it was myself and Paul and Andy who actually helped produce it as well. Like, so they got a lot of stuff together as well as me. Like, and money wise, I didn't put money into it. It wasn't a lot of money in it, but I didn't put. Somebody actually, I got a few donations from a couple of people. But like, the film was, I think we made it. Initially, it was made for €550, and then it was an extra 400 maybe afterwards to get like extra additional, like maybe like DCP or the sound mix. I threw the guy who was going to do it for nothing. I think I gave him a few quid. I'm not really sure. Like, it was what, like 6-7 years ago now. But yeah, it was. I don't even like. To be honest with you, it didn't feel like a lot of pressure because there was nobody to kind of worry about money wise. Like, there was no money there. It was kind of like I had the budget on like an envelope that was in my car the whole time. I was just literally writing down what we spent money on, like a chicken fillet roll here and there and a bit of petrol, like, you know, and I just wanted to do that because I knew that it would be like, if the film did all right, like, it'd be cool to have that as a little memory, like, but I lost it, so that's down the drain. I could just tell people, you know. But yeah, like the cast and stuff, it was all kind of, we did about 5 days rehearsal before, like a week before, just to kind of get our bearings, and because I knew that, like, well, I didn't know anything because I had never done it before, but my way of thinking was, if we got we figured out all of the scenes beforehand, then we wouldn't have to worry about improv, or we would kind of get the improv out in the rehearsals, like, you know, like, so on the day we don't have a lot of time in each location, so we know what we're doing. We've gotten the creativity out of our system, and we don't have to improvise as much. But Paul, if you're listening, he's the master of improv. So it was always
Paul,
fun.
you were brilliant in it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Master of improv. So he always wants to, like, not he always wants to, but he's always good at kind of throwing out new ideas. So that's great to have after we get to take, you know, like, obviously.
Just talk to me, Gerard. Just like, you know, what is the origin of your kind of passion for film? And was there a particular moment that you went, right, this is something I'm going to do?
I actually originally wanted to do animation. I thought that I was going to go on and be an animator. I went to Ballyfermot. I did 6 months, I think, of animation, and then I was like, I just kind of, I wasn't feeling it. It was a bit kind of repetitive for me, and yeah, it wasn't really for me. But I figured out, I think I had been playing around with a video camera the odd time. My dad had one, and I wasn't making any films. I was just kind of shooting stuff, not putting it together. I think I put together a really crude, like, Windows Movie Maker scene before. I didn't know what it was really, and then I think when I did animation, I kind of figured out that I'm impatient more so than anything. That I wanted to kind of just, I didn't want to draw the scene out, or the whatever's going on. I just wanted to see it happen. So I kind of, the next best thing for me was to be like, well, I could just tell people to do it and film it, and then I'd be able to see it quicker, basically. So I think that's where I was like, yeah, that's definitely the next. It's progressing from animation. That's the kind of goal that I want to get to. But I always watched like DVD extras and stuff. I just never thought that's something that I was going to end up doing. Like, I was really interested in it, and I used to watch all these behind the scenes things and listen to all the DVD commentaries and stuff. Never with like an inkling of me, oh yeah, I'd love to do this. Like, it was interesting to me. And then I was like, all right, let's give it a go. If this is a thing that I can do, then we'll try it.
So like you, like, first of all, just to digress slightly, what do you think of the whole Q&A culture in film? Like, what we're doing here, do you think it's good, or do you think it can be, you know, talking about films can almost act as a releasing the pressure valve that that kind of, you need all that pent up rage to make a film? Do you think it can be a bad thing? It can.
I don't know. Like, I love listening to people talking that are passionate about what they do. Like, so I think that's obviously a positive. But then there's also like there's the ego that's involved. Like, if I'm ever doing anything like this, I'm always like, I hope I come across like I'm not I'm not full of myself, and everybody look at me, you know, like, so I love doing them, but then I always have that in the back of my head, like, am I being too kind of, like, do I sound like I'm bragging or whatever, you know, like, which I would hope I never do, but I'm sure we'll be with that, you know. But what about you? What do you think? You're getting all the questions in here.
No, because sometimes the reason why I asked, I suppose, was I find that after you do a film, sometimes you're asked to talk about it, and for some reason I find that talking, or even like any kind of social media, is like it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of takes away motivation sometimes to work on the next one. And so I sometimes when I try and stop, I try not to do it, so that you can kind of build up that, I don't know, the desire again. Do you ever find that?
Oh, okay. So you meant like anytime you talk about the project, it's a kind of way to kind of relax in a way, like to kind of get.
Yeah, or maybe it's kind of like I think for me anyway. I think filmmaking is it's like you want to say something, and so you hope that the film will do the talking for you, if you like.
Yeah.
And then when you come out and actually talk about it, the film loses its relevance slightly. And or maybe the voice loses, you don't feel that need to kind of put the voice into the film because you're actually just saying it. And so it can kind of, is that clear, or does that make sense?
I think what I'm getting is that for me, I'd rather talk about the process of making the film rather than the actual narrative or the structure of the film, because that's the part that people should be watching. And if they want to ask me questions about it, that's class. But I think for me, the more interesting part is making it, and on the day,
the process.
So the process of that, but yeah, I know I think I get what you mean when you're talking about, like, when you talk about the film, it kind of loses its spark, I suppose. Is that what you think?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's like it's especially when you're asked to sort of intellectualize the film, or when you're like, say you're trying to develop a new project and you're asked to kind of explain it. I find in the act of explaining it, the desire to make the film kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, because I think that's also, it's a confidence thing as well, because I rarely, like any of the films that I've done, I rarely show the scripts to people until they're done and I'm happy with them, and it's not even an arrogance thing. I'm just like, I think it's where it's at, and I that's the way I want to shoot it, that kind of way. But my scripts are a bit kind of like, especially the features, like I put them onto the when I typed them out, I don't even look back at them for any errors, and like that's the way I want to do it, and kind of figure I'd like to kind of figure out why we're shooting too, or why we're rehearsing. So I think having an initial story there is cool in my, like, the way I like to do it, like, but I know that that's not the way everybody likes to, and I know that in order to get funding or to get people behind it, there has to be a lot more there, and there has to be a lot more of an idea that you can't explain with the elevator pitch or any of that. I'm awful with like that kind of. I try to explain my ideas to you, like, what the first time we met, like, and every time I do that with somebody that like is in the industry or that has made stuff, I kind of feel like an idiot when I'm talking to them, because I'm like, I want to get it out as quick as I can because this elevator pitch thing, but I also want them to understand it too,
I know that feeling 100%. It's horrible.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, you're
have that kind of, you need to be able to translate it other than by making the film, because you need people to trust in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I suppose, especially with drama, probably a little bit different to documentary, which can be a little bit more comes together in the process, whereas with a drama, it must come together in the script, and so that communication, that clarity in the script has to be there from day one. Or do you find that you change the script, or you change the script as you're making the film?
Yeah, like with A Day Like Today and South, we changed. Like, there was two big parts of the film that we didn't have until on A Day Like Today. There's a scene where Paul's character tries to kiss Andy, and that wasn't in the script. That would I never saw the relationship as anything other than platonic, but there was a suggestion on the day when we were actually shooting, and we said, yeah, let's give it a go and see what happens, because like I was always adamant that like there was nothing between them. It was all just friendship, like a brother sister thing. But it worked, and the reaction from Andy was great, and it was just I felt like it worked, and that was the suggestion. I think Paul suggested that on the day. But then the same thing happened with South, and we actually had to do a pickup on that, because we just kind of went from the scene when they're drinking by the water, and then it went straight into the mother's character and we didn't have the scene where they confront each other out on the street. So that scene was never in it. And then we just kind of like, we needed something to, I think Matthew suggested that we needed something to put in there just to build the tension, or there was something missing anyway. And that was what it was. And yeah, I hope it worked with it. Like, I've seen the film a lot. Like, I don't like watching my films back, but like you do see a lot of the mistakes, and it is tough to kind of watch your own stuff when you know what's coming, and when you know what the mistake is, and you know how it looks, or there's a bit of grain in this shot that shouldn't be there. It's a tough one to watch. I try not to watch mine when they're screening it on in cinemas, because it's just even the reactions. If somebody doesn't laugh when they're supposed to, like, it's kind of it's just, you feel your heart sinking, like it's horrible.
How do you deal with critics?
I'm open, like I'm well open to criticisms, but it's just, if somebody's being a dick, then it's hard to kind of accept somebody's criticism if they're just being nasty for the sake of it. Like, but I'm always open for suggestions. If I have ideas, people have, like, even on the same thing, like with on set and stuff, like, if somebody has a better idea, then I'll listen to it, and if it works, then we'll go with it, you know, that kind of way. But criticisms afterwards, I think my ma's my harshest critic, in the most loving way. Like, she'll tell me if she didn't like something, or if it wasn't as good as the last one, and it's great. It's like, I love that. Like, they're saying, like, they're always really supportive, but they don't mind. Like, I don't mind them telling me how they really feel about stuff, and that's cool.
Pushback is important.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's great. Like, because you don't want somebody just telling you your stuff is great and not being able to progress with your style or your storytelling. Like,
no, absolutely, and it's good. I suppose when I was saying earlier on about the whole talking about it, I don't. I mean more in a public forum like this, where you're kind of talking to, as opposed to, like, obviously in the process of making a film, you're always talking about it and why you're doing this or why you're doing that. Yeah. That's absolutely essential. What I kind of meant was more on the talking, like, on a radio program or on a public forum. But anyway, in terms,
how did you started?
What's that?
How did you get started? Yours is an interesting story.
What makes you think that? I was like yourself. It was animation.
Oh yeah.
And I actually started with stop motion animation. And again, so when I was in school, I was probably a terrible student. I was I was the type of kid that was like, every year they were trying to keep me back and staring out the window continuously. And so I made this film called Save Us Adolf, which was about Adolf Hitler saving the world. And you can find it on Vimeo. It's
for this now. It might get cancelled if people find it.
Well, the whole idea of it was about kind of like judging people and how easy it is. Like, so, like, say teachers who kind of, constantly might say, kind of put you in a box or whatever. And I wanted to kind of say, you can't do that. Even we do that so easily, including with, say, even the worst people. But what if they were in a different situation? They could. Yeah. It's a crazy story, but if anyone's interested, it's called Save Us Adolf on Vimeo. Anyway, I made that, and then I went into a completely different career, and I practiced as a solicitor for a few years, and left that because I started making a film while still working, which was called Man-Made Men, which was a science fiction film about a scientist who builds a world inside a box.
Yeah, I want to see.
And kind of watches. No one's allowed to see that. It's not that great. But
Bears it does, and you'll have to send it to me.
Yeah. And then from there, just kind of segued into documentaries. I've no idea how. I think it was a French guy asked me to do a film. It was just kind of a commercial film, and it kind of sparked an idea for filming pubs around the country.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that started.
That's cool. And how did you like find the transition for, like, obviously because you're still interested in doing narratives, and because you have a couple of scripts that you were talking to me about, and how can you explain to me what the difference is? Because I've done documentary too, but like short form and stuff. What's your kind of process for like working with like a feature film and a doc? Like what's your kind of take?
Yeah, it's hard. I suppose every project's different, as you know, and so with the drama, I suppose the big difference is I actually like, being honest, I find documentary a lot easier, because you're not dealing with casting, you're not dealing with locations. It's just the practicalities of it are just a lot easier, and but documentary is still a great way to tell a story. You don't need a huge crew. Now, I've always had extremely valuable crews on each project that I've worked with, either in producers or in different roles, or cinematographers and as I said, the pushback has been vital. Like even on Abbeyfeale Good, Dennis Wire, who produced, and Paul Holmes, would be telling you, look, you're going too far with this or too far with that. And as you said, it's important to listen to that. And then in Northern Ireland, we had Gary Walsh and Colin Nicell, who again were excellent in kind of the pushback, and then Man Made Men, Helen Sheridan. So it's, and then in future projects, like working with Malcolm Willis, who I see is on here. Malcolm, hello. So again, on a different project, and again, that's executive producer in Northern Ireland, and it's very easy to kind of, you know what you want, but sometimes you can just go a little bit too far, and it can just kind of spoil it a little bit. So it's just great to get that.
And it's process that you're saying you can go too far, or when you're actually on, because I was wondering when I was watching Older Northern this morning, and I watched the Irish Pub last week, and I was wondering, like, is it just you in those, like, in the rooms with the people that you're interviewing, or is, like, do you have like a producer with you when you're asking? So is that where if the pushback comes, or is it in the edit when you're?
In the edit, always in the edit. So the edit is the most important part. So it's during the actual process itself, there's always a bit of a discussion, but it's mainly in the edit, because that's when documentaries, kind of really kind of comes together.
Yeah.
And obviously you have an idea as what you want to say in the film. But it's just a case of just working with the people around you that can help me say what I want to say, or that where we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and would it be you in the room on your own with the
interviewing somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah. So during interviews, if I'm with a cinematographer, I'll be just me and the cinematographer, or it's just me, or actually. And Abbeyfeale Good, Dennis, the producer, was actually doing a lot of the sound. So there was two of us.
Yeah.
It can work. I do find that the less people in a room with in documentary, it's by far better, because obviously you don't want to intimidate the subjects. So it's just really a case of just trying to get them as relaxed as possible, and that can work best with less people.
Yeah, and I noticed then with Abbeyfeale Good, like, I sent you a message saying, like, you had me in tears and everything. Like, it was I don't know if it was the mood I was in that morning, but it was lovely. Like, it's just a gorgeous film. Like, but the scenes that obviously got me most were the mother talking about the daughter, and it was I just kind of wondered, like, with those, for you, like, which process do you kind of do your researcher prep them with, or do you have a researcher that does this, that preps them before going in, or do you kind of have to push a little bit to get into those kind of trickier kind of conversations?
Yeah, I it depends, I suppose, but in general, I would try not. Hello, Paul.
Like the little Mortal Kombat.
In general, I would try not to talk to subjects at all prior to interviewing them.
You wouldn't talk to them before?
No, not even. I don't want to know anything about them.
Oh, wow.
Because that kills any kind of realizations during the conversation. Then they know what they're going to be talking about. I know what I'm going to be talking about, and it just the whole spark goes. So that would be kind of.
So you must be interviewing, like, a lot more than we see. to get the kind of story that you want to tell?
Well, not really. Like so with that particular film, like, I suppose you're talking to a lot of people who have a very limited amount of time to be able to talk to you, because it's more or less the length of time to get their haircut.
Yeah.
So you just it's a bit like, I suppose, when you're writing a script, there's bits of intuition, I suppose, not to sound too grandiose about it, but you kind of might go, you'd have a sort of an idea as to what to ask. Now, sometimes somebody else might say, oh God, they might give you a bit of information about somebody, and then that can, somebody that's with the person you're interviewing, but it'll be on the day, and they might say something, and then that will trigger it as well. It's not completely like, oh, I had an idea that this might have happened to that subject.
I thought just judging from the stories that you get out of people, like I just would have assumed that you knew where to kind of lead the conversation, but like to have that as a you're finding out as well, that's unbelievable that you can get that out of people. Like, are you drugging them? No drugs, just a good haircut. Yeah.
But say with Older Than Ireland or the Irish Pub, you're obviously going on the themes that are sort of emerging, following from previous interviews. So you start off really not knowing where you're going to go. Well, you have an idea, but it's not a very clear idea, and then you interview somebody and you realize there's an aspect to this that's quite interesting, and then you might follow up on that with the next interview, and then you'll see if that's forming part of the collective unconscious of the town, or if it's just an outlier. And if it's an outlier, then it's probably not that interesting. Because so I'd probably try and tap into the collective. So I suppose they're very thematic kind of films, because they're not character studies like most documentaries would be. You're focused on one person and you want to know everything about that person. Yeah. And those type of documentaries often work best when the individual is an outlier. If they're like a brilliant sports person, or if they're an amazing whatever. Whereas actually in thematic films, sometimes it's out of the ordinary that you find the little gems.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference, I think.
So it would be exactly the same with obviously the pub would be the team, because each person that owns the pub will have the same kind of experience. And
it might be like family, or it might be three generated learning from the parent, or learning from the stuff hanging on the walls, why it's there, the local social history, or the characters that visit, and you'll start to find the commonalities, and then you kind of explore those, and then you see that's when you start tapping into the collective. If that makes sense.
Is my audio going a bit wonky? Can you hear me?
Just a little bit there.
I think crackling.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hello. Hold on, I'll plug out this. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It sounds like kind of robotic. It might be my.
Yeah. You're kind of saying the same to me.
For the phone. It might be mine. I don't know, because you get a bit of a kind of, maybe it's a end as well. I don't know.
Somebody says, "Oh, am I the only one there?" Hello there. If I'm the only one here, sure, I'll just talk away. So Gerard Walsh, it must be one of the only Irish filmmakers to make 3 feature films in a row, with almost non-existent budgets and get them all into the Galway Film Flat. And they are actually remarkable, I have to say. I was watching South just before I went on here, and some of the acting and the directorial choices were really, really good. Like just moments where Gerard would film a couple speaking, but you wouldn't hear them, but through their actions, you'd know exactly what they're saying. So I highly recommend, if anybody gets a chance to look those films up, do. You can see the review of South on online. Or it was the review. I think I was talking to myself there, Ger. I'm not actually sure if anyone's listening to me. Can you hear me?
I'm not needed. See ya.
I can hear you, Paul. Can anyone? I can't hear Ger. Can Ger hear me?
He's gone again. It might be the. Oh, I see. Okay. I'll kind of pick up where Ger left off, I guess. What was it like to go from someone who would be maybe perceived to be relatively new in terms of being a established filmmaker to be nominated for an IFTA based on the success of Older in Ireland? What was that like?
To be nominated for an IFTA, that was great. Yeah, no, obviously, like again, look, we did have a good team in that, and so it was great. It's great to be recognised in any way. You know, it's always a lovely thing. Like it's yourself. Yeah, we're all, it's such a hard process getting a film made, Paul, as you know, and you're often very worried whether the story will come through or whether it'll work. And then when it gets released, if it gets picked up for distribution, if it's lucky enough to get picked up for distribution, it's huge. And then all those other things, I don't really know whether they mean anything really, but it's just it's like anything. It's like when you get a pat in the back. It's just kind of it's just another motivating factor, and hopefully those sort of things help a little bit to get the next film made, and that's really the most important thing with any of those aspects, And sometimes, like something like an IFTA might not mean so much to, but say in the US or there's a perception that can actually have a degree of importance. I don't know what people's views are about any of these award ceremonies. Do they mean anything? I don't know. But
they mean something if they can get you money for the next thing, right?
And that's the bottom line, really. It's like there is a bit of an ego boost as well.
Of course, I mean, does it really matter when you're winning pieces of metal on sport? On sports day when you're a kid. In the grand scheme of things, no. But they motivate. The sense of achievement is important to push you on to the next thing. Yeah. I don't think you should ever win anything and feel as if that's kind of it. You've arrived. You've landed, right? Oh
no. It's from that point of view. It's I wouldn't like, to be honest with you. For me, it's just that kind of help with the next film that you're really trying to get made or you're really passionate about. And so from that point of view, it does a little bit, definitely.
How did television happen?
Television was so again, it was just a case of it just seemed like one that might work for television, that particular film. And so we didn't actually apply through what we did for, say, Older in Ireland, the Irish pub, through maybe Screen Ireland. We went direct for television on that. It just seemed that it was a more local story, and we were really fortunate that Rte felt they liked the sort of our thoughts on it, and they got behind us. And yourself, you put in a lot of projects and they 99% of them get rejected. So when every now and again when you do get one, it's like winning the lottery.
Yeah. What?
Not in terms of money wise or anything, because you're spending, but just in terms of, brilliant. Now we can make another, we get to make another movie. It's just a wonderful thing to be able to, especially if you're really passionate about a story. And for that, like a portrait of a town it just seemed like one that was very interesting.
Yeah, I think just based on kind of your three most, your three projects which you're most well known for, there seems to be it's very much a case of it pretending to be something else to get like existential truths out of people which are completely unrelated to an Irish pub, to being 100, or to getting your haircut. They're like you're from what I can see, you're excavating kind of universal truths from the human condition through the guise of, like I said, hairdressers or whatever it may be. Is that conscious from your perspective, or is it, like you said, that kind of conversational, not accidental, but conversational way in which you kind of draw the truth out of people by putting them at ease? Is it like, oh, I have them again, and they don't even realize they're telling me all about their lives?
Oh no, I certainly wouldn't. I would hope. No, to be honest, it wouldn't be like that. It would be. It's more people. So it's not trying to go fishing really.
Yeah.
It's more, how can you be a conduit, or how can you facilitate the subjects to lead the story. I know that sounds maybe like bullshit, but actually that is the ultimate goal. And then out of that, hopefully something different will, something more will kind of arise. So I think if you went in with the view to manipulate or to do anything like that, I think people would really spot that very quickly. And it's also just a case of and I think this is the case with any subject or with any person. And why casting is, I don't subscribe to casting in documentary, because I think that every person has a unique sensibility and unique story, and so it's about really just trying to respect that as much as you possibly can, and then allow their own personality to emerge. And so if something that happened really to somebody, that will come out. And sometimes it's not about asking detailed questions, it's about asking just really short, open questions, so that people are more inclined then to go their own way.
Yeah, I think you don't take compliments really well, so I'll keep this part really short. I think you're kind of the master of getting universal truths out of broad demographics, which is a skill unto itself. You seem to have been working a lot in that regard over the last 5-10 years now. What's next? Do you want to go into scripted drama, or?
Well, first of all, thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that. I really do.
It's not a backhanded compliment.
I do appreciate. I do. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to go into drama, and so we've been working on a script there, for a while, and I'm actually working with Gerard as well, actually on a short script, which is really, really strong. And so that's the aim, but it's I'm working on a documentary, as I said, with Malcolm Willis there, and which I'm excited about, and I'm just completing another documentary now at the moment, which is.
Tell us about that. Are you allowed at this point?
I suppose I can.
It's about as much as you can. I mean, if it's going to break it,
it's kind of the story of confession.
Okay.
So it's kind of it's portrait of Ireland through the prism of the confession box.
Wow.
And it's interesting. And then I'm doing another just another documentary. I'm just kind of halfway through as well. So they're great. and really enjoy working on those. And then, but I suppose the goal ultimately is to is to try and get back into drama. That would be the real goal. Like back to like all those years ago when we were doing the Court Astronomer, Paul, and those other, so look, I've got, and it's just a case of getting it's a whole other art form, really.
Mm-hmm.
The script writing thing, and it's it's not necessarily one that I would have put a lot of time into it sort of a few years ago, and I just need to kind of get the mind back into that.
Have you met with any? I know documentary filmmakers, for example, who said that they feel as if there's a bit of resistance, no matter how good they are. They feel as if there's resistance to allow them to be able to, like, they're not not in all cases, but some have said that there's a bit of belligerence and resistance in terms of allowing them to have even any sort of a budget to go and make anything dramatic or scripted. Have you encountered any of that?
No, like I can understand that budgets. You're talking about a much higher budgets. So for a documentary, it could be a 10th or a 20th of the budget of a feature drama. So number one, that means it makes it a lot harder. There's a lot less people that are able to do that. Number two, the levels of collaboration are far greater. So even if you write a script, you have to get a producer on board, and then you've got to be on the same page with that person, and you might be different of tastes, and then you're trying to get the funders on board, and there might be different tastes with them, and then you fall into the whole creative conundrum where you're sort of going, is this really the story that I started out with? So it's a much harder genre, to navigate. But I think that I think there would be a desire to see people with really original ideas, and like the likes of Paul or likes of Gerard there, who is going out and making 3 films. Okay, there was the release was through a school project, which I didn't know, but to go out and do South and to go out and do A Day Like Today, I think that's the level of commitment that you need to get to that point where people are willing to back you in film, in drama. You have to be able to go out and prove yourself time and time again. And actually, if you look at the vast majority of filmmakers who have broken through in drama, whether it's Stanley Kubrick, who did 2 films off his own bat, where he did all the cinematography, the editing, his 2 first films, or you look at Peter Jackson, or you look at you could go through each one of them, and you'll see that ability not to give up after the first feature.
Yeah, that kind of Cassavetes attitude, just
exactly. It's just you got to do it with 2-3 features. That's just the way it is, and most people just don't have that motivation. But there's lots of reasons for that. I mean, you have to have access to, like, and I'd like to talk to Gerard about this. Come on, Gerard.
How you doing, Gerard? You're just making a bit of dinner.
My phone died, like, and then I was trying to get the iPad, and whatever. So we're back now. Sorry.
Gerard, no, I just while I have it in my head, and sorry to interrupt there, Paul, but the idea of going out and making a feature drama by yourself, I was just listing a few kind of directors that on the top of my head that did that. They just went off and made a feature drama off their own bat.
Yeah.
Obviously, in order to do that, you have to have a cast that are willing to go along on that journey with you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Paul, you could answer this as well.
Sure.
There's obviously a lot of people that you see that, I'm not going to be in a, beautiful. I'm not going to work for nothing or whatever. Number one, how do you convince people to do that? And number two, is it a little bit like, say, playing football down the green, with your friends. You've got to do that for 10 years before you can play for Manchester United. Is it something that just more people need to get on board with? Let's just make loads of films, and then we'll all kind of rise together. And then, do you think in Ireland we're lacking that a little bit?
I think with me, I was lucky to meet Paul at the start of it, to be honest with you, because he had FNI, and it was kind of, I don't know how long it had been going before we started doing A Day Like Today. But
2 or 3 years maybe.
Yeah, and then we kind of, I don't even know how we met, or I don't even know what the first project was, but I kind of had the idea for Paul, and then with his kind of background and his reputation, that's how we got other people involved, and they kind of trusted Paul's judgment, I think, on that. So that's how we got the cast again. And I was kind of promising people that, like, it's not gonna, like, not Paul and Andy, because they were on every day, like, but I was promising everybody else that was going to be a short thing, not going to take up too much of your time, because I was very conscious that people have jobs and they need to make money, like, you know, like, so in any of the situations that I'm making films, I'm sure to be as quick as possible, get everybody in and out, and just kind of, that's why the shoot days were like 10 to 15 days max on every film that I've done, because everybody's doing it for free. Crew are doing it for free when they're involved, and I don't want to waste anybody's time, so I want to get as much done as possible. That's what, with A Day Like Today, I had in my, because I'd never shot a feature, so my idea was to shoot 25 pages in a day, and yeah, and first day we got 15, like, and that's unheard of as well, like, to get that done. Like, we were working from 8, I think, no, it would have been 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock that night, the first day, and we got 15 pages done. Like, and obviously we had to regroup, because there was days I thought I was gonna get it done in 10 days, like, you know, or maybe, I can't remember. I thought I was gonna get a lot done in a day, but I had forgot about the actors. I had forgot the fact that they have to do it. Like, I'm there, like, I have the camera, so I'll film it. They're obviously gonna be able to do it. Like,
yeah, if I can just pitch in, just from someone else who was there those days. I think for anybody who's working on any feature that has very little money involved, you have to get on really, really well with those people. You just have to like them, and it has to be, you know, kind of like a tribe or a little circus going to the next town for every pickup. Everybody quite literally has to pick up everything.
Is it a trust thing as well, though, Paul? Because, I mean, you, like, as an actor, say, if you're willing to give, say, 2 weeks of your life for nothing, you've got to be very trusting in Gerard that he's actually going to finish the project. Like, I'd say a lot of people just kind of go, "Oh, I'm not happy with it," and they dump it. Whereas, you know, Gerard actually went off, finished it, and tried to get it, you know, got it out there. How important? How do you trust somebody enough to be able to commit that?
It's just an instinct. There's a wonderful thing with Gerard and a few other people that I've worked with as well. There's a great honesty of effort involved in the endeavour with someone like Gerard. And if he says he's going to do something, he just goes and does it. And there are a lot of people, particularly in Irish film and TV, who say they're going to do something and disappear. And I've experienced that dozens of times with people who are directors, you know. So it's wonderful when you have that trust and that level of, and it just, look, if you're working with somebody and you get on with them, you'd lie down in traffic for them.
Yeah.
And Gerard's one of those few people, and you feel, and it's not about money. It's never about money. If there's money involved, if there's money not involved, it's never about it. It should never feel, and everybody's just disappearing. It's just me and Gerard now. Hi, Gerard.
Let's drop this facade, Paul. We love each other. Let's just be together.
I promised myself I wouldn't do this today. But yeah, like, just in continuation for this, to that question, for other people listening, I mean, it should never be about money. It should never be about who's involved. It should be about the honesty of effort and the endeavour. And if it's not about the endeavour, you feel it. It feels like it's unraveling, and you don't want to be there.
But I think as well, from my perspective, it is the kind of, if you do have, if there's no money involved, and you do know that, like in your head, you know that you're going to make this film, you're going to finish it, and if you can see it, like for me, I can see it in my head. It's going to, like, I'm going to be editing it, so I know what it's going to kind of turn out like. So I can kind of put as much confidence in it as possible, but it is also it's important to realize that it is other people's time, and I think I made it. I think I made it very clear that I didn't want to waste people's time on the day that we were shooting, I hope that like if we did need to stay on, it was for a reason, and it was important to get the shots, you know, that kind of way. And even because it was my first again, like I had done a couple of shorts beforehand, but nothing to this degree. So like I was I'm still kind of winging it, you know, that kind of way, because it's usually me, and sometimes it's a cinematographer and a sound guy, you know, like right. That's the main crew, like, and hopefully some days people chip in here and there, like.
It should be, in my experience anyway, with that. I mean, it's the best example of somebody apologizing and feeling guilty for asking someone to do their best, and then the other people that are involved would stay for another 5 hours on top of that. And it's that lovely marriage of we're all in this together and we're all working for it and we all care very passionately about it. And you know, it's a really good example of that. And if you have that, really, really nice little acorns can happen when it's out. Not that it, you know, was a tremendously successful film, but it launched a lot of people's careers, notably yours. So it was just a lovely thing to be involved on. And if everything I've ever worked on felt like that, you'd work for free forever if you were getting 350 quid a week from the government.
Yeah. That's we should do it. We should do it again now, Paul.
Yeah, let's do it. But I'm gonna dip out again and then leave us for another 10 or 15 minutes. All right.
Cool, man. Thanks very much.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you.
Sorry about
Paul, but do you kind of, I mean, commit to people? How do you commit to people, Paul? Sorry, Gerard, like, you know, if it's like, say even in South, I mean, you had a lot of actors in that. And you had some obviously actors, you know, you're like a remarkable main cast that were obviously there for a long period of time. Do you commit to them in writing, or is it just like you just sit down and say, look, this is gonna happen, and you know, come hell or high water?
I honestly don't think we got releases until like the week before the Fla, maybe. That was the like it was kind of not even it was shake on it and just that's what we're gonna do. Like, and if you agree to if you agree to it, you're stuck. But everybody just kind of agreed that like we're gonna need a bit of your time, and sometimes it's gonna be a bit longer, and everybody was just understanding. And I think the fact that I had a day like today there was a big deal, like to show like I can do it, and now here's a bit of money, behind this project. So let's see what we can do with that little bit of cash, like, you know. So I think people were a bit more confident in my ability to deliver a finished product. Even I think if it wasn't for that, like they're still going to get something for the show reel at the end of it that is shot on a red, and it's gonna look pretty cool, like, you know. So
did you shoot South on a red?
We shot it on Scarlet, yeah. That's again, it was Kevin Tracy who shot it. I wanted to just bump up the quality that little bit extra, and I had built up a little bit of a relationship with Colin out in Film Equipment Hire, which was great, and he did a good deal because he knew that it was my money that was going into it. So, and I would get jobs anytime I'd get a job and there was a bit of a budget on it. I would always go to Film Equipment Hire. So it was nice to have somebody like Colin be so supportive, and he's unbelievable. Like with people that are in my position, to have somebody like Colin backing it is unbelievable. Like.
Well, you said there, like, it'd be good for your show reel. Like, that's a real kind of
yeah, it's a bit of exposure books.
Do you take you know, obviously people do exploit that whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
But a part of me thinks though there should be, or could there be some kind of, but this, as Paul rightly said, I mean, this comes down to the credibility of the director and the honesty of the effort of the director, and people do exploit other people.
Yeah.
You know. You know, with you know, using kind of, you know, good for the show reel, and sometimes then the footage ends up in crap.
Yeah. So another thing that I do, even with South, with locations and stuff. So, and I always regret it. Not I always regret it, but I always kind of like, all right, that's a lot. It's a bit over what I should be doing. Like, so we shot in a pub, say in South. So for us to shoot in the pub, I offered them a promo video in exchange. So I wasn't paying in cash, I was paying in the service. So I would
okay, that's really clever.
So the same thing with actors, like sometimes if I knew that like it was an actor that I really wanted, and there was a bit of give in them. Like I would offer to shoot or edit their show reel or shoot a scene for the show reel.
Do a promo for them.
So they wouldn't be getting nothing out of it, you know. Like, so if I can offer somebody that, then I will to progress and to help the film. I did a lot of that.
How did you find Darragh O'Toole and Emily Lamey? Because they were phenomenal.
Yeah, it was like as soon as I met Emily, I was like, that's Jess. Like, so the first day that I met her, she drove down in that blue car that's in the film. So I was like, yeah, even then I was like, if we get her, then she's driving that car in the film. But then the first day we did the scene where they're having the drink at the car. That was like the first time I met her. That was a scene that her and Dara did for the first time, and it was perfect. Like, and that was it. Like I knew they were the two, and the fact that like I had wrote the script for Dara, I had him in mind when I was writing it, and it was from A Day Like Today that I met him. So he had been talking about a film with Shia LaBeouf, Charlie Countryman, I think it was, and I watched that film. And I stopped the film halfway through, and I was like, I have to. I sent him a message saying, "Can you play guitar?" He said, "Yeah," but he was lying in the end. Like, if they ask you if you can get onto a horse and ride it, you say yes. But I wrote the script then, and then 2 days later, I sent it to him. I was like, "Do you want to do this?" So we were him and Han about it for a while, and then I went to the Fla with A Day Like Today and met Eve Collins. And she was basically like we had screened the film there, like it was shown and people were talking about blah blah blah. And then I think it was the closing night that I was talking to Eve. She was like, "Yeah, it's great that you got your film in, but you still have to prove yourself. Like that's not it. Like you're not gonna get a lot of offers now. Like you still have to keep working." So then I think 3 weeks later we went into production with South, and then a month later we had it done. So it was just get it back into the flag and just keep it going and try to get.
What did she say about South?
I honestly can't remember. I think I think she liked it. Like they screened it, so like I hope they liked it. But yeah,
I was telling the listeners there while you were while the battery went on the phone, and just saying that like there was moments in South where you just kind of pull the camera back, like in the flats, and you know when when Dara was coming out of the flats and he meets Emily and they kind of just talk, you know, you just let it be silent, and there was just some really beautiful moments like that, you know, where you were able to tell exactly what was going on without saying it. Like is it like they're all little things I'm assuming that you learned from doing A Day Like Today. And what's the biggest lessons you learned from one film to the next?
I'm not sure. Like, so I think for me, with like I learn more lessons. I think when I'm doing like stuff like work, like as in doing promos or music videos and stuff. I think I've learned more to bring into those projects because you can kind of experiment with it, even though it is their people's projects or their ads or whatever. You can kind of mess with your style. I don't know. I think the style I have is kind of recognizable in a way, but I don't know if it's there at all. Like I don't know if it's even close to what I would like to achieve. But the way I'd like to make a film, the way I kind of imagine anytime I picture a film that I'm about to do, it's always a slower pace, but with that kind of heart, and that's all I can kind of try to achieve. And I don't know if I have achieved it, but I will always try to get to that kind of just dealing with something as gentle as possible, but also showing as much.
It's a real common thread between the three films. Like is there's almost like you have a protagonist who's in a moment of crisis or more almost self-loathing, and then they go on this journey that kind of brings them balance. Is that concept?
Yeah. Well, I don't like. I hope again, like with each character, I hope that the balance isn't as kind of clear cut. Like I'd love people to come out of it being like any of the films being like there's a possibility of hope basically, and there's still a lot of shit to do. Like, you know, like anyway. So that's why with South, even though there is that little bit toward the end, I wanted to end it with I ended it with the silhouettes of the both of them kind of going back in. But I just love the idea of them being so small on the screen and the world is just going on around them. So like that could be happening in the background of every scene in cinema. You know, like in a film, like there's always something that could be worse going on in the background, and there's another story going on right now. Like, so I think the idea of having them so small and just having the world go on without them is just a lovely kind of. It's just a lovely way to think about even your own life to be like, yeah, you're dealing with some shit at the moment, like, but there's also other people dealing with the exact same thing or far worse. I don't know if that was translated with that last kind of shot, but that's when I was thinking about that shot. I was always thinking in that way, you know, like, kind of.
Oh wow. You don't like. I mean, you've got a very positive. There's there's not this sort of nihilism which you see in a lot of sort of some Irish films where you know it's got this sort of, you know, hopelessness. I think at the core of your films is you know there's a humanity that'll emerge and will come through. This is that just your attitude in life?
I just think it doesn't have, like, a film doesn't have to be a comedy to have a positive ending. Like, there can be a little slight bit of hope toward the end of every film. Like, but not like, I mean, I might end up making like the saddest film in the world at some point. But right now, I like the idea that there's hope. You know, like, for everybody, no matter what the story is, there is something that, like, it might end bad, but like there could be some spark of hope in the end, like, you know.
I might jump in there.
But I've never like, even when I'm writing those films, like, that's not the way I think. I think that's just probably my mindset, like, that I'd like to have. It doesn't have to be completely dreary and depressing to kind of to hit home, like, you know.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
That's why even with Abbeyfeale Good, like, there are those stories like of the parents that have lost kids. Even though they like that's something that you'd never get over. There is still to get up and go, and you do have to, like, there's a way, like, there's an obvious ending that could be the way they go, but people are trying to get to just
get on,
like, exactly.
Yeah.
There are people that are in the world that love them, like, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key point, isn't it? It's that at the core of everything is that love, you know. And if you can kind of touch on that, that's when I suppose that's why people say that film has great heart, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what, like, if like, even seeing that, like obviously as a new parent, you get these kind of horrible thoughts in your head about what's going to happen, does this happen, blah blah blah. But seeing that, I think that's why it affected me so much watching Abbeyfeale Good, was seeing somebody that has gone through that and then is still pushing on. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that, but like, it is possible. Like, you know, like, right? It was
one that, like, just in terms of, but totally, like, in terms of that interview, I remember, like, it was one of the few times that I was actually, like, in tears, like, and she wasn't in tears at all, like, you know. It's much more powerful sometimes when somebody is holding it together. So, you know, and I'm not. I was like, holy shit. I have a daughter myself, you know, and it's just, you can't help but, like, just your empathy is
100%.
Completely getting the better of you.
I was interviewing a woman. Her name is Jackie. I've been doing a little kind of documentaries. Like, I've been documenting stuff for the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, and like, I heard about her daughter who passed away through suicide on the radio, and my little girl was in the back at the time. Like, so as I was driving, like, I was welling up, so I contacted her. I didn't realize how soon after.
Did you? Wow.
I didn't realize how soon after it had happened that I contacted her. I just wanted to help in some way, but I did an interview with her, and then I only found out literally when Facebook memories came up that it was 2 weeks after the daughter had passed away, and I didn't realize that. I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't have known. Like, if I had known that, I wouldn't have done it so soon at all. Like, but it's the same thing. Like, I was behind the camera trying to control myself as she was telling me the story, and she's just it was the most heroic thing I'd seen, that she could actually she could speak about this in such a controlled way. Like, it was just mental. Like,
Some people are unbelievable, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's mad. Like and it was just I like I have so much respect for how you get these stories out of people, and they can trust you to tell you. Like that's why I'd love to. I don't know how long we have left. Like I had questions prepared and all this stuff, but I'd love to know what the process was to kind of to make people comfortable enough to tell you those things. Like
Get them to get their hair cut. I know, not to be flippant, but like I think it's just as I said. Hello, Paul. What's going on?
How are you doing? I might just ask you one or two questions I have here from other sources.
Yeah.
How if you can both answer the question separately, it'd be great. How do you deal with being knocked back or dealing with rejection? Which we often ask on the podcast. We deal with not getting the money, not getting the actor, not getting the festival selection, the whatever.
You want to go first, Alex?
All right. I like in it. I won't like. Sometimes it really hits me. I won't lie to you. Like I'd be especially like any application you put in an enormous amount of effort, and I wouldn't put in an application unless I could visualize the story. Even if it's a documentary, I'd have a good idea as to what it has the potential of it, or I'd see a symmetry in the theme or something like that. And so you get really angry, and then I'm like, how can they not see? And then you kind of, and then you get, and then you sort of realize, look, it's it's not personal at all. And then you might have a sleepless night, and then you wake up the next morning and you have a coffee or whatever, and then you just bounce straight back up. But there's definitely a day where I'd be pretty good at it. I won't lie. Just because of the massive amount of work that goes into some applications. Like sometimes you could you could film like on one project. I think I interviewed 16 people. And it got rejected, and I was like, I couldn't be like, I went and like it was just a flat no. But you know what, you find funding through a different source, and that's the key. Like if you believe in something enough, I think you'll always just you'll make it anyway, and that's what should be in your head. There's not 1, 2, 3, or 4 funders. There's thousands, and they're all over the world. And I suppose it's just finding, it's having the energy after the knockback to start reaching out to everyone else, and then and it will be funded.
Ger?
I'm only starting to kind of go through the funding process at the moment. Like, so I haven't actually had many. Like, I think I've maybe with South we tried to get like completion funding. That was rejected, but it wasn't rejected in a like you should burn this film. It was just like we can't have this one, so try to do it yourself. But I've only started kind of submitting stuff now, and I have got like you get the rejections and stuff, and you do at first it is an ego thing. You're like, well, they don't get my idea. It's obviously their fault, blah blah blah. But it's subjective, and it's the first time I've submitted, so like I'm not going to expect to just get funding straight away. But with like submitting for like festivals and stuff, that's the exact same thing. Like at the start, it was ego. It was like, this film's amazing. Of course they want it, and then when they don't want it, you're like, how didn't they see this? They're all idiots. But then you realize that like thousands of people submitting, like, and you're not as good as you think you are. Like,
well, actually, I was just going to say that point. Like quite a lot of time they're right, and and when you come to terms with that, you sort of realize, okay, I can see where they're coming from here, and then you get to adapt as well.
Yeah, but that's why I
make it better.
That like, if they didn't give me money, it's because they don't like me for who I am. But it's nothing to do with that. Like, I feel like eventually it'll happen, but like it's not the end of the world for me. I'll still keep doing stuff. Like if they don't fund it, I'll make it, but not in a kind of throwing it in their face kind of way. It's just find a way, like, like, right.
Mm-hmm. Just one last question, and then we'll let you go. Just incidentally, guys, whoever else is still watching in there, and we're streaming on Facebook as well. If you sign up, for those of you already on the group, if you go into the networking session, there's 2 minutes to talk with somebody, and kind of number one, and we've said this on all the other sessions as well. Kind of leave your ego or your anxiety out of the equation and just think of it as checking in on a neighbour over a garden wall for a second and just see how they're doing with everything that's happening at the moment in the world, and don't talk about films, and you might find yourself enjoying it more than the anxiety will allow at this present moment in time. So if you want to just check, just to the left there, you'll see the networking session. We'll have a half an hour after this because we're going to wrap up soon. Reach out, you might meet someone, and then you'll have a reference if you see them at something in the future, at the very least. Last question: Do you have a motto, or do you have a mantra that you hark back to when things are going difficult for you?
Sure, you go ahead this time.
I think it is literally just get out and do it. Like, don't wait for somebody to tell you to do it if you want to do it. If you have the means and you're not hurting anybody, then go for it. Like, if you're not going to end up in a lot of debt, and you know that you can manage it, then there's no point in not doing it. Like, and if it does fail and you feel like it's not as good as you want, then you don't have to show anybody. Like, as long as because they're happy in the end and they can get something out of it, like I, or the crew can get something, at least a scene or some nice shots out of it. Like, at the end of the day, it is your decision in the end if you want to put it out. But I think with enough passion behind it, like, you'll always love the finished product.
Alex, do you have any advice to live by or stuff that you?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think you have to get up and do it. And even if you want to make a film with one person, two people, you just have to, you don't need big budgets. You really don't, to tell a story with a lot of heart. So there's no really excuse. You can do it on your phone. You can, you could interview yourself. You could, there's just, the more limitations, sometimes the better. And work with your limitations. It's like, don't wish that you have anything else, because that's just bullshit. You just have to be happy with what you have, and then I think then you want for nothing. And it's all like, I mean, look, we live in a fascinating country, and we're obviously it's a shit time, and we're all struggling. But if you focus only on your struggles, and then that's what you'll attract. It's
attraction stuff.
Yeah. Well, you have to. Yeah, you can't do that, because it'll. If your attitude is to moan or whatever, and of course people do have a lot of struggles, and I empathize with that 100%. And I remember, like, I didn't have enough money to go. I'm not doing those stories, but to drive up the road or whatever, so petrol money or whatever. But
at the end, what did you do with the Polo?
Yeah, that was when that went. Oh, that was a devastating day. 17 years I had that car.
That he had.
Do you remember that?
Year or something that he was using to drive around it.
Huh?
He had a Volkswagen Polo from 1997 that you're still using up until about 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, that way, like, honestly, I couldn't drive around. So look, I'm not saying, like, we're extremely lucky. Most people, most of us, and I, like, personally, I've been really lucky. I've had, like, a sport of, actually with the Irish pub, it was my dad who drove me around. He wanted to have a pint in every pub, so he was driving me around having the pint while I was doing the filming. So, like, extremely lucky with all that. So
have good people around you.
But yeah, that's what it's all about, really. And it's and I've got Aileen, who supports me nonstop in every project. So it's just a case of just focusing on the positives, as Gerard said.
I think it's also important to not just think about it as yourself. So if somebody else has an idea, don't just tell them they can't do it. Like, if it doesn't matter if it's film related or whatever it is. If somebody has a passion for something or they want to try something, then don't shit all over it. Just let them just let them think that they can do it, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, be proven wrong, right? Prove yourself wrong and let people prove you wrong.
Importantly, it's enough. Like if one person says, "Yeah, go for it," then that means the world. Like, and it'll give you a little bit of confidence, you know.
Yeah. There's enough naysayers without you being one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I just want to. We're going to wrap it up now. I just want to take just a minute just to thank both of you for your time. It's incredibly hard to kind of muster an hour and a half to be focused at the moment. I don't know what it's like for you, just with everything that's going on. So it's really appreciated. People, obviously will view this afterwards as well, and I'm sure our audience as well really appreciate it too. Do you have anything you want to plug? Alex, is Abbeyfeale Good still on the RTE player? Or?
No, it's just finished. Too late.
It'll be. I'm sure it'll be available for Christmas.
You can get Older Than Ireland and the Irish Pub on iTunes or both.
On iTunes and on both. Okay. And Ger, is there? Where can people view your stuff if they want to see it?
The first two features on my Facebook page, the Gerard Walsh filmmaker, and then I released a short film on Facebook and Instagram and stuff that I shot with my fiance and my kid. We just shot it like around the house, and then there's one coming out soon enough that hopefully I'm waiting to hear back about a voiceover and stuff. But it's about kind of the whole COVID situation. It's just more of a positive outlook on the whole thing than and showing how communities band together to kind of create this positivity. I'm just waiting to finish that with a voiceover and some score. But hopefully that'll be out in the next week or two. So
lovely, very well done. Thanks very much, lads. Continued success, and all the best.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much
for facilitating.
And thanks, Ger.
FNI, and hope we got some money
beer now.
The bubblings.
All the best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.